This is Nick Hudson joining you from San Francisco, Bay Area, California. And my connection to Hamburg is my cousin kind of influenced me into kind of looking and talking about the team. More of a fan in the recent 2 years. My cousin's grandmother was a lifetime member, and she actually threw discus for Hamburg and competed until she had a broken hip before the Olympics, so she was unable to compete. But that's kind of my connection to Hamburg. And Patrick, I'll pass it off to you.
Well, thank you. So my name is Patrick Kröger. I live in Hamburg, or close to Hamburg, and I basically just grew up close to Hamburg, and everybody around me was a fan of Hamburg, and my uncle took me to games of Hamburg, and so I started following the club. And I'd say I started following the club since 2004, and then closely since about 2009, 2008. And yeah, I don't know why I still do it, but I enjoy pain. And here we are.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Casper was unable to join us for today's conversation, but hopefully he'll be here next week.
Yeah, actually, we're hoping to have a bunch of other people on. Max, who originally wanted to start the podcast, Maxinho, couldn't make it for another week or two, maybe. Yeah, and hopefully he'll be on regularly, and I'll be on definitely, basically every time because I'm recording. And yeah, I hope to have you.
Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to go through is probably the match versus Bayern, minimally, some remaining schedule kind of shenanigans and relegation candidates for that, management changes, and maybe something about the players' form later on. But we're going to kick it off with match versus Bayern. So Bayern Munich routed Hamburg, to say the least. Yeah, what's shocking about that? I think it's like a 45-3 goal difference in the past 10 matches, if I'm correct, versus Bayern in Munich. But this was a lesser result than probably expected after last year's 8-0 thrashing.
Yeah, as far as I know, we are below the goal average of the last 7 games or whatever. So we've improved slightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So since I'm coming from California out here, we kind of wake up at around 6:30, and that's the match start time, a.m. And before I was downstairs and watching the match on in Spanish, because that's the only channel that's really offered around here, it was already 3-0. So that's not the greatest start to a match, especially in Munich, and I'm not really familiar as to how they got their start, but maybe we can expand on that.
Well, I think we can just start by, first of all, looking at the lineup. And because I've read conflicting things about what the lineup was supposed to look like. It was actually 5 in the back. So we had Van Drongelen, Papadopoulos, and Sakai as center backs. Yes, Sakai, center back. And right back was Santos. Left back was Santos. Right back was Diekmeyer. Hasn't played in a while, but got a chance to play for 25 minutes. We'll get to that. And Wallace and Jung in the defender midfield positions. And I guess the idea was to just park the bus for a while and hope to get a counter attack with a Kostic or Hunt to score. Maybe not. But just from the lineup, you could tell that was not going to work because Sakai as center back. What was he thinking? Really? What was he thinking? I'd rather see Jung as center back than Diekmeyer. And Sakai was the one to make the first mistake. Like I can't really blame him because it was a deflection, and that deflection went to Ribéry, and he just had to run it in basically. That's what he did. But it was the positioning of him. He was very far back. There was no way for Ribéry to be in an offside position because of that. And it just felt like he was completely out of his realm at that moment, and it just kept on going. The second goal was Lewandowski. He got a cross from Kimmich from the right side. It was a beautiful cross. He had a lot of time to prepare for that. And he was in a header duel against Sakai. Well, like, he's not going to win that, right? So that's how the second goal happened. And then the third goal, I'd have to think, was the third goal. Oh, the third goal was beautiful. It was a beautiful long cross from Boateng over the entire pitch. Found Alaba. He just had to put it into the middle. Nobody was there. Lewandowski just had to whack it in. So yeah, that's how it happened. And it all happened very quickly. And yeah, we had a good 3 minutes before that. And then that was it. After that, that's just after that first goal, you just knew it was going to go downhill. I was talking to my girlfriend who was watching with me, and I said to her, like, maybe we can get to the 80th minutes, 70th minutes without conceding. And if we do that, well, maybe we can get a point. It would be really bad if we get an early goal scored against us, and like 10 seconds later, like, we were down. Did you expect that lineup if you followed like the press conference or anything before that?
I wasn't expecting particularly the attack as Shiplock and Kostic and Hunt. I was expecting Kostic probably up there. I mean, coming from the US, Bobby Wood has not been available to do anything productive in the box in the past 6 months. Yeah. So I wasn't surprised that he was left out of the squad entirely. But I thought it was somewhat odd that they would be pulling back all their forces and going so much defensive. But I guess that was their idea. And I mean, they conceded 2 less than last year. I don't know if that's called an achievement at all, because that's still 8-0 is absolutely detrimental to a squad's kind of will to continue whatsoever. So that was disappointing as far as that goes, in that they were so intent on just making a back line and kind of guarding from there, rather than trying things and putting as much pressure as possible, maybe even getting caught out on the counterattack, which I would have been happy with, because they would be putting pressure on Bayern. But that's not how it goes around with Hamburg, especially at Bayern in these recent years. So
yeah, I agree with that. It's I was disappointed because what do we have to lose, really? Nobody's expecting us to win or do anything, really. So why do you put up a lineup like that is basically destructive, and you don't really have a chance to win? And really, we don't care if we lose after trying to win, because we have nothing to lose, right? So I think you might as well just go for a little bit more attacking style. Maybe not even attacking style, but just don't just start parking the bus against Bayern. Nobody's done that successfully this season. So what are you going to do? And in minute 24, we've changed that. In minute 24, our coach took off Diekmeyer and brought Janicic, of all people. So we put 4 in the back with Sakai as right back and Janicic in midfield. So we had Wallace, Jung, and Janicic on the pitch. So 3 defensive midfielders. I did not get that. To be fair, it worked out reasonably well. Like not much happened during the rest of the first half, and then in the second half, didn't really matter because at some point you just break down, right? But yeah, I don't really get those decisions. I can definitely see why he didn't bring Wood. Sure, Wood hasn't done much of anything really lately. And Chiplock, I thought against Mainz looked pretty decent. Sure, he's not going to score, but might as well. He worked hard, I thought. Didn't bring Arp. I don't know why. There was no official reason given, as far as I know. And in a game like that where you have nothing to lose, why don't you at least bring him? And then you have the option, I did not get that. So, yeah, I thought a lot of questionable decisions again from Hollerbach.
Yeah, and I think that's also like a discussion to be had about kind of Bernd Hollerbach's statement. This is a translation from German to English, but the game was over after 18 minutes. He says, "You can come here and lose, but I wasn't happy with the manner of defeat. That's just not the football I want to see." And I'd have to agree with him in that they played so defensive. And I think Hollerbach kind of contributed to that by having the 4 central defenders, or even 3 at the same time on the pitch there. But that's all around a more disappointing decision, I feel, on his part, by kind of succumbing to that. We're going to lose at Bayern again, and just accepting defeat. Even on like the English Twitter, they included the team bus in the lineup, which I mean, when you have your Twitter not even backing your team, it's I don't consider that backing the team. But
no. In Germany, we have a word for that. It's called Galgenhumor. It's when you make jokes about how bad everything is, just because it's the only way of coping.
Yeah, exactly. An interesting, I guess not very much news, but the Hamburg News English, the non-official Twitter, posted about Hamburg beating Bayern from March 4th, 2006, just as a coping mechanism for the match. And I mean, it was interesting to hear all the updates on my phone and see it like the direct opposite scoreline on the TV than what was appearing on my phone. But back into the performance in the second half of the first 45 minutes. I'd say it was enormously improved from highlights and such, because I'm not really sure what the mentality is behind putting Janicic on the field after he crashed his car drunk without a license and almost got suspended for the entire year from training. I mean, he's an okay, he's pretty good prospect, but I think there should be a harder punishment for decisions, even as a youth. For decisions like that. I think that was the wrong message to send, to reward him, even with a kind of spot in the substitution ring against Bayern. I don't think that sends the right message to youth in the academy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was very surprised. I really thought he was going to be suspended for at least the rest of the season. And I mean, he's young, okay, he makes mistakes, okay, but that was not just a blunder, that was pretty messed up what he did. It's really dangerous. He could have really hurt somebody. And yeah, I thought that was a weird choice. And rather than bringing Arp, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And anyway, so what you said with Hollerbach wasn't happy about the match, but about the way we played. He said it's not the kind of football he wants to see. Well, what kind of football does he want to see? Because I have not seen any improvement in terms of attacking, really. And he started the job by saying in an interview, "Yeah, I'm here to stabilize the defense." Well, was that really the issue? we haven't scored any goals. Like I don't think that was the issue. And I've listened to another podcast last week, and they mentioned that Hollerbach had a track record with his previous clubs, where each consecutive season he managed the club would score fewer goals. And at the last station, it was like 32 or 30 goals, something in the season. Considering they were pretty successful teams for their league, that's a pretty shocking stat, because that's very indicative of what he's done with our team now, which is he hasn't improved the attack in any way, in my opinion. We've looked good against Mainz, but that's mainly because Mainz did really not contribute to the game at all in any way. And it was like our last shot, and that's the only time I've seen this team really trying their best this season, to be honest. And yeah, I don't really see any improvements. I don't know what he was going for. I understand what he means when he says he's not happy with our performance, because he expected probably the team to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, let's just go for it. But yeah, I don't think we've improved in any real way, and I don't see us winning any games anytime soon. I don't see how. After last week's match against Mainz, what else can you do? We've had one of the best games we've had in quite a while. We've been very dominant. We've had a lot of possession. We've had a lot of shots on goal, but we didn't score. Like, where's that coming from? And that's what concerns me. That's why I don't think we can stay up in the league, and that's why I don't think we should keep Hollerbach after this season, at least. Like, I get if we just continue with him for the rest of the season, but I definitely think we need somebody else, somebody with more of a plan than just let's not concede and hope we score, because that's not going to work in the long run.
Yeah, I think there were rumors going around about possible hiring of the Bayer Leverkusen coach. Is that true?
He's the manager, so he's probably a replacement for Todt. I don't know if you know the difference in Germany. We don't have a manager as coach, and we have Sportdirektor, sporting director. Those are separate positions. Typically, we have a few exceptions. Felix Magath used to be a very prominent one because he wanted full control of everything. But most of the time, we have those two separate. So we've had Jens Todt, and Jens Todt is just he's the manager, but not the coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So he would be a replacement for Todt. Might be a good one. I don't know, but he's not a coach.
Yeah. Okay. I understand now. I think it's kind of a confusing, maybe for English speakers, because it's like trainer is the head, like the coach of the team. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And then manager is more of a overseer of
exactly
sport.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Exactly. So we had Bruchhagen. You remember Bruchhagen?
Yeah.
He was our of the board, the chairman of the board, and he's sort of management level, but above Todt. So he has to choose somebody for sport, but he also has to choose somebody for finance and whatnot to be managing that part. And so the sporting director is basically the manager of sport, and that is his area. So he can do contract extensions, he can hire coaches or fire coaches, he can work on how our youth lineup develops, how we implement new changes to our youth development and whatnot. So those are his parts, but he's not coaching the team. So he's going to find somebody to coach the team, and that would be the called trainer. And I think we need a good replacement in that area, especially. Todt was probably not a very good sport director, but I don't think that was our biggest issue this season.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that, we could talk about that. We did not purchase any players for our attack.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So detrimental decisions start, I'd say, with the end of the winter, kind of the Hinrunde. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hinrunde. The winter half of the season. and the lack of ambition and kind of ideas about finding players. They were always late to the game if they even considered getting players in the first place. They were snatched up by the likes of Bremen and other teams throughout the league. I think they could have done much better in many regards in the winter transfer window.
Definitely. And if you look at the other teams around us, like Stuttgart has bought Gomez, Köln bought was it Terodde? So they've all been looking for forwards. They've all been looking for people to score goals, and we just haven't. And it was very obvious after the first half of the season that we were lacking in that department, and nothing happened. And from all I've heard, it's a financial issue. We obviously have high debt. We have a lot of things going on that are bad financially. Like we needed the Kühne money, but Heribert Bruchhagen, our former, it's not anymore, chairman of the board, is known to be conservative financially. He managed Frankfurt that way for a long time, and only after he's left Frankfurt, they've started spending a little bit more on players, a little bit more on salaries, and well, they are successful now, but like who knows, could have gone the other way. But that's what you get with Heribert Bruchhagen. It was known. Like I could have told you the same thing. Like he's not going to spend more than we have, and without Kühne money, there was no spending, and that's exactly what people in interviews have said. That we just couldn't buy anybody at a reasonable price without making new debt, which we couldn't afford because they had like the mission to not increase debt over the next years, especially because we might go down, and if we go down, we are in deep trouble. I wanted to say something else, but right.
Yeah, indeed.
And so I understand why it didn't happen, but everybody knew it was going to be an issue. Like we had no forward who's regularly, at least somewhat regularly scoring. No forward. So, and it was our only issue. That was a bit frustrating this winter, looking at it, and nothing happened. All the rumors, nothing ever happened. And I think that was the biggest mistake this season. And fun fact, the Greek god Papadopoulos said the same thing in an interview after the game yesterday. He said he thinks the team was mismanaged. He thinks that Todt, in particular, I think he names Todt, made the mistake of not improving the squad in the winter when everybody knew we were in trouble in our attack.
Yeah, and I don't see much of that changing if relegation is in the imminent future, which it's week after week increasingly seeming to be what's going to be reality in the near future, especially with the likes of Muller kind of forcing his way out because Hamburg doesn't want to pay him more money just to be injured for another season. So he might be picked up by Schalke, which is what Sport Built has mentioned as of late, as lately as March 7th. And ARP possibly being picked up by Tottenham, as it's known that Harry Kane is one of the idols for ARP as kind of a player. So
I didn't know that. I think ARP really should stay in Germany for at least another year. I don't think he's just finishing his what's it called, A levels, I think it is in English. So he's still in school. He's still very much busy with other things, and I don't think he should leave without having at least a decent season in the Bundesliga. I think it would be too early to go to Tottenham. I've read rumors about Bayern, but like in Germany, every newspaper is just going to write Bayern if anything interesting happens. So who knows if that's credible in any way, right? And with Müller, I think Müller is. I'm really sad about Müller being injured because I think he's the only player we had that is actually dangerous to the goal. And we've missed him all season. But I understand if we just let him go, because we can't afford to pay these kinds of wages still, especially if we get relegated. And it's been a mistake we've been making over and over in the past with players like Holtby, players like Wood, to just extend contracts with wages we can't really afford. Because in the past, we've had Kühne come in and demand an extension. For instance, Bobby Wood, the contract extension, was one of his demands for the money we eventually spent on Santos and Wallace. So it was. I'm not going to say it was his fault, but without Kühne, we might not have done that. And now we have a very expensive Bobby Wood who is not even in our team. Maybe we should not listen to some millionaire.
Yeah, and the contracts which are said to be expiring this summer. So currently they're under the category of free transfer on transfer market. Include the likes of Aaron Hunt, Ryotoku Sakai, Dennis Diekmeyer, Lewis Holtby, Bernal Thoke. I'm not sure if I said it right, but Sven Shiplock, Nikolai Muller, Sejad Seliovic, and Andres Hirsel. So the band of 26 pluses on the squad, or 25 pluses, will be off unless they get contract extensions, which is very unlikely because they're probably not going to want to join a zweite Bundesliga side.
Yeah, I've looked at the list before, and I've talked to a friend of mine about it, and he said, I don't care about any one of them. And I've looked at the list again, and I've said, okay, we have Wagnoman and Ambrosius, both young guys who might be extending, from what I've heard. And other than that, it's really Hunt, fine. Saliovic, I don't think we even planned with him for more than this year. It was mostly like we needed somebody because Müller was injured. Müller, he's going to be too expensive. Diekmeyer has had his first ever good half year since like 2010 or something like that. So he's really not worth considering, in my opinion. Shiplock, well, yeah. Holtby, from what I've heard, I've never disliked Holtby as a player. Like I was always fine with him playing, but from what I hear, he earns a lot of money, and we just probably can't afford it. So that Sakai is our captain. I don't know, maybe he'll stay, but he'll have to probably take a pay cut as well. Yeah. You've mentioned, was it Tölke? Thölke, I think you called it?
Tölke.
Yeah, okay. We bought that guy, I think, at the beginning of this season, and I think nobody knew why. He's not a prospect. He's not. He wasn't even a decent first league player or anything. I don't even know if he got any minutes at all this season. But yeah, that's fine if he leaves.
Yes.
Knöll, young guy, young forward, is going to Nuremberg. He probably wants to play first league next season. Who else? Yeah, that was it. Hirze, fine. That's probably not our biggest issue, the goalkeeper position. So yeah, but it's going to be interesting because we don't only have those, we have a couple of other players whose contracts are running out the year after that. Let me look at that. Mavrai, for instance. Ekdal, Matenia. Okay, Arp. Yeah, fine. He's either we're extending now or probably selling him anyway. Yatta. Okay. I think Yatta might stay. I think we might try to build him up in the second league.
Yeah.
That's it. But still, a couple more names. So there's a lot of players who've been a big part of the squad who are going to leave. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the squad looks like next year, either in the first or the second league. Because I think, regardless of whether we go down, we're going to let most of those players go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, let me see if I can find it.
Do you have any preferences for a player you would like to extend?
I mean, those who will probably stay are few in between. I I don't know about you, but I really liked Jung out there. He seems like a solid fit for the midfield / defense.
Yeah, I think so.
He is usually a creator when it comes to starting kind of passes forward, and I think with a little bit of work, he could probably learn something and be successful if we wanted to continue.
So I thought when I think of Jung, I always think of him as a defender. I think it's a bit of a shame that he's being put in midfield and left open to like play make from that position, because he's really not a playmaker in my opinion. He's rather limited. He often gets into good positions. This is one of his strong suits. He has good runs in his game, but he doesn't pose a threat. He's not playing that last pass to whatever forward, and he's not scoring goals himself. And so I'd rather see him either in like a back three. So that's what I would have done, for instance, if I had gone with a back five against Bayern. Why put Sakai in the central defense instead of like Jung? Because I always thought he's a pretty decent defender. He has a really good eye. He's a good. He can anticipate passes really well. That's what I always see with him. And so I'm a big fan actually of him, but I think we put too much on his shoulders in those positions. I think he works much better next to Ekdal, for instance, who can like sort of compensate for that.
If Ekdal's even on the pitch.
Yeah, those couple of games were fine.
Yeah. I mean, the list of those who are predicted by Abendblatt to stay or there's doubts about include this is the staying list: Polespek, Mikkel van Dogelen, Ambrosius, Behunek.
I don't know either.
Pfeiffer, Bagnoman, Jung, Janicic, Ito, and Yatta. And then the ones they say have doubts about are Mavrai, Saliovic, Waldschmidt, Altintag. So, I mean, Altintag has been performing well in the Turkish league. I don't know if you've been keeping up.
Is he a first league? Wasn't it a second league club?
Yeah, he's on the first league club.
Huh.
But he's kind of serves he's jumped around to multiple teams as of late. Batuhan Altintag.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that.
I'd probably say basically the same thing with a more German accent. It's Altintag, whatever. Turkish, so it might be like Altintag, something like that.
Yeah. But
it's funny, I haven't heard a lot of English pronunciations of those names.
Yeah.
All right, I just looked him up. He's had 6 games this season and no goals. Is that correct?
Last year he was with Kasim Pasa.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. And
I mean, I wouldn't want to put my axe on him. Is that how you say
yeah.
it? You know what I mean, right? I wouldn't want to bank on having him back and scoring for us. Like
exactly. I think we picked him up in 2016, possibly.
Possibly. Where is he?
Yeah. Last season, he scored 7 goals in 8 matches in the cup, I believe.
Also, just looking up, is he still officially our player? Yeah, he is. Okay, I wasn't even sure. It's one of those names. He's been
the domestic cup. He scored 7 out of 8. But those are in like lopsided fixtures.
Yeah,
against lower teams. But he seems like somebody could probably push forward. I'm not sure how much of a prospect he is, though.
Me neither. I don't know if we've do have any intention to keep him at all. Anyways, so
yeah,
because
probably
sure he's scored a little bit here and there, but he didn't score in like the Bundesliga.
Yeah, he played 26 minutes and got a yellow card. So
Yeah.
that doesn't say much. But
other than that, the list of
yeah.
players who are supposed to stay, it's not a bad list, considering there are a lot of young players who might end up being decent. But I fear we are not going to do extremely well with a lineup like that in the second league. Like I don't see us getting right back up necessarily. And you never know. Those players they're not proven players in any way. You know what I mean? You can't say, right, they look decent, they might be talented, so we're just going to go back up because we have talented players. No, there are a lot of talented players in the second league. And with a squad this inexperienced and without any like real experience in that sort of quality of a league, because the difference between a fourth league or a third league team and a Bundesliga team is big, especially for young players. I've read a lot of like interviews and books from players who've made it, sort of like they haven't been like the big stars, but they've become Bundesliga professionals. And they always tell you the same thing. Like they did well in their youth team, they did well in the amateur team, and then they got to the first league team, and they said the training was really hard. The matches were so much quicker. Everything was much quicker and much more intense than they used to. And the difference can be big. So just because somebody's been decent in our second team, we have a lot of decent players in our second team, they might not perform that well under the different circumstances of second league, because right now they're all playing in the fourth league. So that's a very big difference. So I'm not very positive with the squad like that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And kind of taking it from an example from locally, San Jose Earthquakes are about 45 minutes south of where I live, and they have Florian Jungwirth, who played for Darmstadt.
Yeah, I remember that name.
in the first league, but I mean that was like a one and done, or 2 seasons up in the top level, and weak bigger clubs that kind of contributed to their stay for a season or 2.
Definitely.
And he said that as soon as the second league came calling, he was off to the Earthquakes. So he's been great for us locally, but I mean that's not a detraction, or not to distract or say that it's going to be easy whatsoever for us in the second league. I mean, drawing from what recent posts, I think I believe Casper maybe posted it, but the past few seasons, the larger clubs that have been relegated from the Bundesliga as of late have either stayed a season in the Zweite Bundesliga or being immediately promoted again. But I do not see our first-rate squad, any of them, being present in the second league, Zweite Bundesliga. And as a result, I fear that we might see mid-table or lower table finish is my prediction for Zweite Bundesliga next season with what we're currently have. So unless they're spending or selling players, getting a lot of cash on their hands, I don't see an improvement from current form. So
exactly, I entirely agree with that point. I don't think we are your typical big club getting relegated like Berlin or Stuttgart were, because I think our squad right now is not very decent for second league. Like it would be okay, but we wouldn't necessarily be leading the league, because we just have a weak squad. Like I think a lot of people look at the names and go, "Oh yeah, that's fine," but when you just watch them play, it's not fine. Like I think Freiburg has a better squad.
Yeah, definitely. And I could probably argue that even crosstown St. Pauli as strikers that are putting more goals in. Even they've scored. I mean, it's not the same caliber of play,
of course,
obviously. But they're consistently out there and performing at a high level. So which is not whatsoever prevalent for Hamburg at the moment. So
right. So we've covered that. What else we have?
Well, I think we hit pretty much all the topics. You talked a little bit about management. Oh, maybe the remaining schedule, who we're up against, and that whole bit.
Yeah, that we could do that.
So we've got. Here we go.
It's next week, Berlin.
Yeah,
at home.
Berlin.
Berlin's not the kind of opponent to let us score easily.
Definitely not.
It's a home match. I think a lot of it depends on whether Berlin is like wants to play or not. Because if they just don't want to play and they go defend like Mainz did, I don't see us getting much out of it. Because Berlin is actually better than Mainz at that. That's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That'll be a tough match.
Yeah, so they're currently sitting 11th. I mean, historically, I think on Transfer Market you can look at a club league table, and you can see wins and losses by match day. So like all our pretty much all we have 3 draws in the Rückrunde. I'm not sure I'm saying right.
That was very well done.
But I mean, we'd have to become one of the best teams in the Bundesliga for this to even be feasible whatsoever. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 match days remaining. 2 of those match days are against current top 5 teams in the Bundesliga. Hoffenheim was a relatively breezy win last time, but I do not see that happening again. They've returned to form, especially with their 3-0 win against Wolfsburg just yesterday.
Yeah.
And I mean, Serge Gnabry's hitting form, and that will be definitely a tough fixture.
Yeah, Schalke as well.
Yeah.
Like, who are we going to beat realistically? Maybe Freiburg, if they have a bad day. Maybe Wolfsburg. And then that's it. It reminds me of a lot. Before the season started, usually what I do is I like rank the teams in my head, just and talk about that with my friends. And we've come to the conclusion that this year we really couldn't see anybody who's actually worse. Last season, you could always say like Ingolstadt and Darmstadt really have poor squads. They are probably not going to do well. This season, none of them. And when I look at the last matches that we have ahead of us, I see the same thing. I don't see anybody who we realistically are better than the other team. So who are we going to beat? Like Berlin, okay, maybe they're not the best team. They're not super consistent. Stuttgart away. Stuttgart is doing reasonably well right now, and especially at home. After that, we have a game against Schalke, but they're second in the league right now. Then Hoffenheim, you've just mentioned Hoffenheim is back in form, and unless something happens, they are probably going to have a strong finish in this league. Freiburg.
Optimistically, Borussia Mönchengladbach would be one where we could gather 3 points, possibly. Being optimistic, of course. They're doing quite poor at the moment, and I could see probably maybe a managerial change would come before we play them, and that's what really saved Stuttgart. Was nobody saw it coming, but the name is escaping me.
Typhoon Korkut.
Yeah,
the new coach, right?
Yeah, no one saw that coming, and with his just abhorrent record,
right?
And
everybody was making fun of it. It was
third time's the charm. Jeez, I guess it worked.
It's crazy. They're doing really well right now.
Yeah,
the 10th place. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe as you said, Gladbach, possible. Like they are not doing really well, and maybe by the end of the season they're in like a spot in the table where they don't care. Like they can't get into international play anymore, and they can't get relegated. So it's kind of where teams go whatever. But I think we have to win like 5.
Yeah, and the magic number possibly right now would be at least 33. Like, okay, so we've got 3 points to make it 21, possibly against Mönchengladbach. Wolfsburg need to win against them. That's like a must. So that puts us at 24. Hertha on a bad day, 27. And then Stuttgart away is going to be very difficult. I don't think we get points there. Hoffenheim by a fluke, possibly. So 30. That still puts us 3 short. And now we have to rely on games. Eintracht Frankfurt, Schalke, Stuttgart, or other people losing. And I just don't see it happening.
I mean, other people losing is an option. Mainz is playing very poorly.
Yeah.
Wolfsburg, I think Wolfsburg is going to do well enough to not get relegated or in the relegation spot. I think they can do well enough. I think Bremen, they're so on and off. They can have such great games, and they can play so piss poorly. I don't know. But I don't think they're going to go down as well. I think it's either Mainz or us in the relegation spot.
Yeah, and honestly, like I'd rather see Mainz go down with us than Cologne.
True, same for me.
I think after a season that was so good for them with Anthony Modeste just scoring 28 goals. And then poof, his goal scoring power is gone. Absolutely ruined the team. And I mean, now they've got a goal scorer back. I'd see them possibly getting 16th over Hamburg. Although I don't want it to happen, I think it will.
I think it could. I think Cologne had more than just Modeste as a problem. Obviously, their defending has been very poor this season as well, and they were definitely not poor at that last season. But they've also been having a issue with their player Hector, who's been out for first half of the season, and I think he's really important for that team because I think he gives the team a very different kind of structure on the pitch. He's a left back, so he's not going to be the playmaker who's the make or break guy, but it really feels like the team plays very differently with him on the pitch. And ever since he's back, they've definitely been improving. I don't want them to go down. I really don't, because I thought they had a great season last year, and I think that the team is much better than their position. But they've been so far behind. And the fact that they've caught up to us is telling a lot about us. But I don't think they can. I mean, I realistically don't see us not get relegated. So I don't think Cologne is going to make it out as well. I don't see how they. It's 8 points towards relegation.
Yeah.
Towards the relegation spot. So it's a lot of points to make up in 8 games for a team who hasn't been winning. So
yeah, exactly.
I just think it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely for either us or Cologne to not get relegated. If we manage that, then whoever goes down, except for us, definitely deserves it, because you should not be worse than us. You shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess just to wrap it up, kind of with maybe talking about a little bit of the club history, mascot. What do you think? What do you see in the future for attendance? And then obviously the clock's got to come down.
Yeah, I wonder if the clock's gonna come down or just stop it and leave it there. I'd personally do that. I don't think we need to change our mascot. I think we can still be the dinosaur. That's I don't see why that's a big issue. I think attendance is definitely going to go down a little bit, but I mean, they've already had the attendance go down. Like the last 2 years or so have been worse than previous seasons, because people can't do that anymore. We might see a difference when we go down, because the team that plays in the second league will be very different, and perhaps we'll do somewhat well. And if we do somewhat well, people will come back and find new heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the fan base is definitely there to just fill up the stadium every game still. But I'm not sure about that. I think they definitely need to lower the prices. I don't know if you've heard of the prices, been here ever before, but we have some of the most expensive tickets in the league. And for the kind of football...
what? Just give me like a range. In euros, it's fine.
So for a reasonably cheap ticket, you'll pay something like $30 to $40, and you can obviously pay a lot more than that. And the big issue is that those cheap seats will be very far up, obviously. So if you want to go down just a little bit, you can pay easily 50, 60, 70 euros for a single ticket. And I don't know the season ticket prices actually, but I know we're on the top 5 most expensive ones. I have to look that up. But we're definitely not cheap, and the kind of football you're watching is not really justifying the price.
Yeah, I mean, out here in the Bay Area, these prices are normal. So
sure, but not in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I understand that, but you'll easily find tickets in the prices of hundreds.
You can definitely find those
sporting events, but and that's been the normal. But I mean, we have some of the more successful teams in the last few years, and I think soon enough, price for tickets will reflect that of the performance on the field, as it does with MLB, Major League Baseball. Around here, you can find easy $5 tickets, although they are in the top tiers, sections. But yeah, and just kind of riffing off that, when you have a team that's so close to relegation, how do you think the fans and the ultras groups are going to handle it? And because we saw the police had to come out for the match versus Mainz, I believe, and also the fireworks at Bremen.
Yeah.
And I was watching. I saw on Twitter the Lille in League One.
Yeah.
They're dangerously close to relegation, and I think they lost a match, and the fans just poured onto the field and started fighting the players. So that's not what we want to see, and similar situation with West Ham as well.
Right.
Do you think
I've read about that.
They're going to maintain their composure, or do you have any predictions?
I'm really not sure. Incidentally, I've been in the stadium against Leverkusen and against Mainz, which is funnily enough the only 2 times, except for sometime 2005 and prior to that I've been in the stadium. So I haven't been in the stadium for a long time. And against Leverkusen, after the game, there were some people trying to get on the pitch, like 4 or 5 of them, when they were starting to beat the security people with like sticks they had from the what are they called, banners and stuff. They were just whacking at them, and that was like the first moment where I thought, this could get ugly if we actually get relegated. The game against Mainz was a very different story. The security was very high. You're right. There was no alcohol in the stadium. You were searched very thoroughly, and the one ultra group was put into one corner essentially. Right, they had their own stand, and police all around it basically. And after the match, they just got out with the dogs and said, well, "Leave now. Don't make any trouble." And you're like, okay. But it was very quiet, and the fans were definitely very much behind the team during the game, and nobody was angry, or it was almost resignation, just from what I saw. You've probably read the tweet, or what it was with the image of the banner they put up yesterday, was it, I think, with the crosses and the your time's up or something like that.
I'm not sure that I did, but
they've put a banner at the stadium and a bunch of crosses like at a graveyard, and said like, well, your time's up, we are going to get you all, something like that. Those kinds of threats, those are obviously very, very sinister and very scary. But I definitely believe those are just a very few idiots who are maybe not coming back in the second league. I don't know. I don't care. If they decide to abandon the club, fine, because those kinds of people, nobody needs those kinds of people. I think most of the fans, like the regular season ticket holders, and they'll come back. They'll continue to. It'll be a hard pill to swallow at first, but they'll get over it, and I think it'll be fine eventually.
Yeah,
I think there are definitely some who are violent and threatening already. But I don't see it becoming a shit show like it became at West Ham.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps it up here. It's been great talking to you from San Francisco Bay Area in California, and I guess I'll